there, lead the team. Welcome back to another great episode. I've got a treat coming your way today with Keech, CEO of Hexaware, a 29,000 employee global tech services organization. Simply put, Keech tells me that he and his team are focused on building a great organization and making sure every customer feels like they're the only client. And imagine applying that mindset across their 45 plus offices in over 19 countries. Keech, welcome to Lead the Team, sir.
Hey, Ben, thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure.
Let's dive right in. What was your first job and how does it influence your leadership today?
My first job was right out of college. I worked only for 7 months. It's a company called Lakme. For people that may not be familiar with the brand, they're a part of Unilever. They do cosmetics.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Unilever, huge brand. Yeah.
And, I joined as a trainee, and you go through about 5 different rotations during the first year. And out of the 7 odd months I was there, the biggest 4 months chunk was as a salesperson. That's where you start. And then you go to the next level and then the next level. They cover 3 levels of training. And then you get, after a year, you become the 4th level. When you start at the bottom level, my job was in a city called Ahmedabad, which in summer is, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 degrees centigrade.
And this is in India.
It's in India.
Okay. Yeah.
And you walk, my job was to sell to about 35 retail stores a day for cosmetics and shampoos. And, there were times when I questioned myself, what am I doing? I came out of top 3 B school in India and top 2 engineering college. And but what I realized is this, okay, don't judge your job. And I tell young people who join us, because everybody's, I want to do coding, I don't want to do testing, I want to do data. I tell people, don't judge your job. Every job you do, think you're planting a flag that's going to last forever. People should remember long after you've done it that, hey, this kid did a great job, no matter what job was, right? So it was, if I look back on that, the amount of insights you get about consumer and retail behavior in those 4 months is invaluable. Now, though I quit that job in just over 7 months, I have since worked in only 2 jobs. I worked in my next job at HCL Tech for close on 20 years. And then when I joined Hexaware, in my first town hall, I told employees, I will either retire here or get fired.
Well, going back to that first job, it reminds me a little bit of mine growing up in Alabama. I came out of school and I had the feeling that, that my boss had me working I was in manufacturing and I was in engineering, industrial engineering, working the night shift sometimes, working on the plant floor in the hot Alabama sun, going out and measuring trailers and containers for different products. And I thought, man, is this what I went to school for? But looking back, what I realized was I thought I learned how to work, how to be a professional in school. But you really don't get there, do you? Until you're out there rolling your sleeves up, walking the streets of India, 115 degrees, doing the work. And that's where the real education begins, isn't it?
That is true. You learn so much. Ultimately, business is done with people, and you don't learn how to deal with people in school.
Yeah, such a cool job. And so what's been the secret for you? Because I would say 20 years in 2 companies, you was 20 years in your second company.
My second job.
And this one, not quite as long. How many?
It's my 10th.
Yeah. So you tend to stick in a job for a while, or stick in your role, stick in the company. In a world that seems to reward job hopping, to get promoted, you have to leave a lot of times. What's been the secret for you for sticking?
So, you got to think of reward in what time horizon is important for you. So if you think of short term, oftentimes job hopping may be more beneficial. You'll get a hike whenever you jump. But if you want to become a really senior exec, if you want to become a CEO, I tell people, think of a spiral model. What that means is you're not always growing like this. Look for opportunities to do horizontal jobs. Do like the same level job in some unrelated function. Because ultimately, if you want to get at the top, you have to know at least some of everything, and you have to be really good at some things. And that's not going to happen. So oftentimes, job hopping rewards very vertical motions because people are not hiring for what you've not done. They're hiring you for what you've done. But your company, if you build the right equity in it, and if you build the right trust with people above you, they're going to give you the opportunity to do something that you've not done before. And so I really think that reward, if you think of it in the right time horizon, you're always better off. You can't make a difference in a company in 3 years. What are the time horizon that you can make a difference in? And your rewards are ultimately proportional to the difference you bring.
I can see that. And I agree. And it's interesting. A couple of things there. One, what can you really do in 3 years to make a lasting impact? Yes, you can make your numbers, but that's not a lasting impact because you're going to have a slightly higher goal of the same version next year. But impact is something long lasting. And so, and you're proposing, and it's not like this has been a secret sauce for you, is not thinking about vertical growth as much as horizontal growth, or maybe prioritizing both. When's the time you had to look horizontally? Because I bet you did have to look horizontally a lot to stay with a company for 20 years and get to the top.
I must be thankful to, a couple of my past managers who gave me those opportunities, right? I joined, the company that I worked in 20 years, I joined in marketing, which, by the way, is where I met my wife of, 27 years.
All right. You met at work.
Yeah. And then a year later, I got moved into sales. And then right through this period, I did a lot of finance, not like accounting type finance, but pricing and financial modeling. If you're in a small company, and we were at that time, you get those horizontal opportunities more. I've been fortunate not to necessarily go hunting after horizontal opportunities, but I see a lot of reverse behavior now that people, when they get horizontal opportunities, they're like, I don't want to do that. I want to be a specialist.
It feels like, because they're probably thinking, hey, a horizontal opportunity just means more work without a bigger title and more money. What do you say to them, or that people that are saying that right now?
That may be true for 1 year or 2 years.
Okay.
But
and then
very different some years down the line.
So play the long game.
Play the long game.
Yeah, play the long game. Think horizontally. Yeah, I've heard it described as the people think the old school way is to think about their career ladder. And now we think about the career rock wall, where we may have to look horizontally. And it can feel a lot better for employees to think about their careers that way, because when you're on a ladder, you're looking at the person who's on the next rung. And if you're like, my boss is not going anywhere for the next 5 years, I have nowhere to grow, nowhere to go. But with the spiral staircase analogy, they're like, okay, we're moving around. There are other ways to get up than just straight up. Love that perspective. So bringing this, thinking about yourself during that early part of your career, what advice would you give your younger self today, or something that you ask them to try?
Several things, but some interesting ones. What I tell my kids, they both are at college, but I told them when they were in college, have multi-speciality. I think Elon Musk famously obviously studied physics and econ, right? I think in today's world, you need to kind of add computers and data skill to pretty much anything that you want to do. You want to do music, you still want to add computers and data to that. Because you know what? Music can be generated and is currently generated by AI. Now, what can you do to use that as a start point rather than treat it as a competition, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, earlier, till like a few years ago, thought creative functions can't be touched by technology. But actually today, AIs that hallucinate are a problem for many areas, but hallucination is actually great for creative functions.
Tell me more.
I mean, think of the best works of art or movies or storytelling or poetry. There's a strong element of imagination.
Yeah. That's
what differentiates it, right? And ChatGPT or any of these, what are their biggest drawback, right? Aside from bias, is they hallucinate. They come up with random stuff even when they don't know the answer.
Right. Yeah.
That's great for poetry. That's great for storytelling. That's great for coming up with art. That's great for creating movies.
Yeah, I can see a lot of layers to that. Number one, think about your field of study and interest and learn to utilize the tools that can put that into a different area of creativity, like AI, like data. Of course, years ago, there wasn't AI, just in the movies. So this is a relatively new-ish tool. But yeah, I think about like generationally, there's always a tool that can improve the situation. Right now, it happens to be AI, but building your awareness of those tools and being able to step into utilizing them versus your peers that may be shunning them and moving away from that. And I have never thought about the hallucinations from ChatGPT as being a creative booster, but certainly it could be. And you seem like a guy, and this is just one thing that I'm picking up on. You always seem to be thinking about the opportunity in the situation. Hallucinations by ChatGPT is supposed to be a bad thing, according to the Wall Street Journal. But you're like, wait a minute. There actually might be a way we can utilize that. Is this a trait that you have naturally developed, or just natural to who you are, or you're like, Ben, that doesn't even apply to me? I'm curious.
That's somewhat true, I think, for a lot of leaders. I think it's true for most people naturally, I think, tend to be positive, right? But it's good to kind of think of what are good things that can come from a situation, right? So.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a powerful trait. And speaking of traits, what's the one trait you wish you could instill in every employee, all 29,000 employees, and why do you think it's important?
I tell people, take pride in your work. Imagine you're doing whatever you're doing in front of the whole world in a live television. I'm making this up, but I'm saying that to make a point. Two things are going to happen, right? One, you're likely to do your best to make sure that what you kind of work to is successful. But more importantly, if it is successful, you're going to take a lot of pride. And that's a bit of a self-fulfilling loop. If you're going to take pride in your work, you're going to put in that extra effort, you're going to do your best. Take pride in your work. So you should be proud about putting a label with your name on every piece of work. Like an artist would sign the painting. It lives forever.
Reminds me of one of the early Macs from Apple. And was it Steve Jobs had all the employees sign? Maybe they still do sign the inside, or their names are printed inside the computer, like inside the hardware. There's some kind of story about that. Now, no one could see it, but all the employees that participated knew about it. And it reminds me of another study. My wife and I and my daughter, we play a lot of tennis. And there is a strategy that a coach will say, and I've read this, like, imagine that you're on TV and you're playing, or imagine that you're playing tennis and you're trying to show someone how to hit a proper forehand. And it's incredible when you visualize that someone is watching how much cleaner the strokes are when you're really focused on that. And I think it ties back to taking pride. And it's easy. You know, what do you say to an employee who's like, you know what? That sounds great, but I do the same thing every day. It's monotonous. And I feel like I'm just a cog in a wheel. And what are you talking about? I need to take more pride in my work.
You know, we are fortunately in a business where the likelihood of that being true is low. You know, I tell people who come in, I mean, we're in the business of writing code, writing software, and then doing everything else to make that software work, right? Put it into production, run it in production. If you think of every industry in the world, it's been changed by code. You know, movies is code now. Shopping is code. Music is code. Money is code. Everything is code. And every industry, cars is code. Tesla made cars as code, right? So every industry is going to get there. And I tell our employees, that's your opportunity to change the world, change each customer, change every industry by coding. It's not be monotonous.
I love it. That right there, I think, is the secret sauce to employee engagement too. Explain why their job is important and help them believe it and help them understand how it's part of the bigger picture. And not just the bigger picture of, hey, your work here is going to help the team or help the organization, but can you explain how their job changes the world? And then you got to remind them every day. When's the time you had an unexpected twist or failure in your career, Keech? And how did it lead to your personal success or growth on down the road?
I can think of several examples from tactical to, you know, at a tactical level, you know, we are in a business to business industry. So we sell to clients and our deals tend to be large. Each deal tends to be large. And then each loss is like, it hurts people. And I like for it to hurt. I want people to feel really bad when you lose the deal, right? At the same time, I don't want them to wallow in it forever. I think it's called Pirichai Kavavas, is on to the next game. So, you know, there is a time you get 24 hours to celebrate a win or mourn a loss, but after that on. But what happens in our business is this. Deals we lose often come back as an opportunity in 3 or 5 year cycles. And our teams have a special motivation for a deal they lost 3 years ago. Go and win it this time. We just won a substantial deal like literally weeks ago, which is something we lost 3 years ago. And all the conversation about that is, hey, we got them this time, right? So extra motivation that, but this is something that happens fairly often in our company, in our industry, you know, where success and you know, leads to additional motivation. In this case, like, you know, it's served cold. It's not like you get to act on it tomorrow. You got to bottle up that energy and wait for it to unleash 3 or 5 years from now when that same opportunity shows up again. But it does happen.
That's how you play the long game.
Yeah.
Not just from the employees in your career, but how you do it with your clients. And I just love the tenacity. And losing a deal is not a good feeling, but knowing that, hey, my company plays a long game. We're gonna lay it all on the line right now, and it'll be worth it, even if we lose, because we're building the credibility and relationships for the next cycle. Or when you lose, you don't just pack up and get mad at that. I mean, it is easy to get frustrated with a customer who drops you, right? You've been doing business with them for a while. The animosity can be high. Like, that, can't believe they did that. But your mind says, wait. Let's learn from this we're going to get them back in 3 to 5 years when they move around. It's, I think in tech, it's just not a common leadership perspective to have because things are changing so quickly. You're playing the long game in a short game world. There's got to be some friction in there. What do you think?
Yes and no. I think for the most part, no. I think you keep doing the long game, keep doing the right thing for clients. I think the short game is you got to show quarterly growth.
That's the pressure. So what do you do to handle the pressure with a team who, let's say they lose a deal and you're like, man, we got to make some changes around here because we're not going to meet our goals, versus, hey, we made it, they made a mistake, they didn't win it, they've learned a lot from it. I want to keep them around because there's some story from Hewlett Packard, one of the Hewlett Packard founders, where they had lost a deal, multiple 6-figure deal way back in yesteryear, and they asked one of the founders, "Hey, you're going to fire that person now?" And he's like, "No, I just spent $200,000, educating them or training them through that process. Why would I get rid of them now?" How do you think about that? Managing, so playing the long game and the short game with building your team, which I know is a big focus of your organization.
Yeah. So, just before answering that question specifically, I think philosophically, we tend to evaluate people before we hire them. After they join us, then the focus is how can we support them? How can we help them to be successful? Right? Now, that doesn't mean that bad performers get a free pass, right? But we don't kind of judge them or evaluate them on short cycles. We give people enough time to succeed in the roles. And if they don't succeed, we'll try, sometimes not every single time, but try them in a different role too, right? Now, in a deal situation such as what we just discussed, I think it is important for the leader to recognize the difference between a bad team that did a bad job and a good team that did a great job and we lost in spite of it. Did we lose because of them or in spite of them? I think that's an important judgment to make every single instance. It's not that hard. I think, it becomes, if you're like only looking at the data, you can't make the judgment. But if you're actually closer and are involved with the people, the deal, the client, it's not that hard a judgment to make.
Such a powerful response for leaders to be thinking about. One, making that distinction, but also being close enough to the big deals where you can make it. Otherwise, you're just looking at a scorecard. Oh, we're red because we lost business.
Yeah.
That seems bad, but maybe it's just part of the organization's learning journey, and that's just part of it. And so,
actually, there are in certain deals, before we know the decision, I tell the account team, I tell the client teams, I'll tell you this before we know the decision, so that it doesn't sound like I'm giving you a condolence later, and I'm giving you a brownie point later. Even if you lose the deal, you guys have done a great job.
I got to chill. Hearing that. That's how you keep people around and you keep them fighting for you and keep fighting for the client. No matter the outcome, are they doing things the right way? So 29,000 people. How in the world are you managing your time? Because you said you got to be close to the deal and the team to be able to do that. But you've got 29,000 people. So how are you thinking about, and you got a global workforce, by the way. What are you doing? How do you think about time management and making sure that you're doing the right things to spend your time the right ways as a leader?
So we are organized by multiple businesses and functions. And I think all of our leadership team, think of their own businesses as their own company. They set their own ambitions for that business. They set their own agenda for the business. They they literally run it like they're CEOs of that company. So I'm not, it's not one monolith 29,000 people organization. It's a lot of businesses, each of which are reasonably sized, right? Many of them are, getting to individually to get to 500 million size in the next couple of years. Some of them will even this year. But that's how we run it. And I think under each such leader, if you can spawn another 5 leaders who think and act that way, that's a scaling model.
So think and act that way. So how are you thinking about that with your workforce and making sure that 29,000 people are rowing in the same direction? Because most people can't even get 5 people to row in the same direction. So how are you thinking about that?
I think there's nothing like a common purpose to get everybody on the same page, right? We saw this in COVID, right? Twice actually, first wave and then the Delta wave. Every single individual had their own issues at home, personal issues. Some individuals were sick, and our business, especially the first wave, initial COVID, our business was tanking, and nobody knew when that tanking will stop. We were losing not clients, but business from clients on a daily basis. Every day, I used to fear every call that I get because I knew
not good news.
Some bad news. Okay, yeah. I just didn't know what kind of bad news, whether it's about an employee or it's about a client, right? But yet, the whole organization, I think, didn't miss a beat. Everybody worked to one. We had clearly 2 priorities defined. Priority 1, and there's no ambiguity about the order of priorities. Priority 1 is employee wellness. Priority 2 is continuity of service for our clients. We did both incredibly well. And this is in spite of us going through a really tough time as an organization, because there's just this sense of, wartime shared purpose. I think if you can recreate that shared purpose in peacetime, that's great for an organization.
Yeah. Wow. Great. So Keech, what's a tool or gadget that's contributed to your success that listeners could go out and purchase?
I've been using a Garmin watch for longer than I can remember. But more recently, they introduced a Connect app. If your phone has all the rights, if your watch has all the right sensors, the amount of what you can learn about your body and your fitness is outstanding. What food I eat, how does it impact my sleep? When I eat, how does it impact my sleep? How does it impact my heart rate? If I have alcohol, what does it do to my stress level? What you can learn about yourself and how it reacts is outstanding. I don't think fitness is important for anything, but certainly to be a successful exec, you need to be physically fit.
Yeah, tying into the theme of this interview, the long game, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's career, that's life, that's your 50-year plan. So on the Garmin, what have you discovered? What is like you mentioned, eating, sleeping, since you've been wearing the Garmin, what has it made you aware of?
So they have a metric called body battery. It is what it sounds like. Okay, it tells you how much gas you have in your tank. And it's an incredibly accurate reflection of how you feel. How energetic you feel, your body battery will be higher for sure. Okay. And I think I found easy, but if I eat late, spicy food, my sleep is bad, my stress level during sleep, the body doesn't recharge during sleep, my body battery in the morning is lower than what it should be. Alcohol, definitely that is the case. So heart rate, next day resting heart rate will be worse.
Okay.
Actually, heart rate goes up even that particular day. So I think you learn a lot. And like anything, measuring helps you improve, and this measures a lot of things.
So it's a Garmin app within like an Apple Watch or a different kind of watch, or is it a Garmin watch?
With the Garmin watch.
Garmin watch. Okay. It's the Garmin app and the Garmin watch. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, sounds like putting those things on autopilot for yourself. And I'm assuming it gives you some kind of report and points out things, or do you just notice it yourself?
Yeah, there's some analytics in it. I think that's still evolutionary, but you can figure it out yourself.
Keech, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Hit some big topics, for a lot of wise insights there and some great stories. What's your parting thought for our listeners?
Your listeners are execs or want to be execs, I guess. Want to be execs are probably more than the actual execs. I tell young people, at the start of your career, think about what does it take for you to be successful over 40 years and 50 years? Because a lot of people don't think that way. Think about 3 years, 2 years, what's my next salary look like? But the truth is that your average age is going up. More than just the age, the amount of time that you're healthy for is going up. All the big killers will be cured. Cancer, dementia, heart and lung, they'll all be cured by the time they grow up. People are young now. So they'll be working, they could work if they choose to forever. And so what's the rhythm in you that's going to make you successful for 50 years?
Well, we had a heck of a theme today with playing the long game. And so that's the cherry on top of the interview. Keech, thanks for coming on. Lead the team.
Thank you.